All right, it is Thursday, November 19th, 7 p.m. Bolton Board of Selectmen meeting. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, this public meeting of the Town of Bolton Board of Selectmen is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted. But the public can access this meeting while in progress by Zoom video communications with a link provided on the town website. We would, first off, just so people know, I am logged in twice. It's because I can't normally see participants on the tablet I'm using, so I'm using a computer screen as background. It's not a glitch. It's not a hacker. I am logged in twice.
You just
We start with
twice as much. That's all.
That's right. It's in stereo now.
I suppose I should.
We begin tonight's meeting with the tax classification hearing of FY20. And I believe the discussion is going to be led by David Manzello.
Yes. How is everybody tonight?
Good. Good evening.
Great, David. How are you? Pleasure to see you again.
So I figured I would share my screen with the document because my father says I've got a face for radio. So if Jenny, if you could let me do screen sharing.
Do you want me to share the documents you sent? Because I have them.
Sure. Did you got the one I sent today?
Yep. And I updated the packet. So hang on just a sec. People are still coming in. Sure, I get the right one. I'm used to having two monitors. Working from home, I don't have the luxury. So I might be a little slower tonight. All right, so you're looking at the agenda. Let me scroll down. Is this the document you need?
Yes.
Okay. Next page.
Yes, please. All right, so for those that are new for what tax classification is, this is where the Board of Assessors go before the Board of Selectmen. And the Selectmen do not set the tax rate. What we're doing here is a discussion about whether or not to have a single rate or a split tax rate. And as you can see on the steps of setting the tax rate, right now we're performing step 6, 7, and 8 down there. If we could go to the next page. Ready?
Yep.
Okay, so it's just some quick terminology and some numbers that we're seeing for this fiscal year, being fiscal 21. What is the levy? The levy is the amount of property taxes to be raised. The levy amount is determined by the budget. The total amount of approved budget less revenues from other sources like motor vehicles, municipal fees, state aid is the amount raised from property taxation. So for fiscal 21, our estimated levy is to be $23,500,254.58. This represents a 3.4% increase over last year's levy of $22,727,311.35. Pretty modest increase. So good job for everybody that was on the finance committees and Dawn and everybody keeping their budgets tight. The levy ceiling. The levy ceiling is basically we take the total aggregate value of the town's taxable properties. This year, that number is $1,250,000,000. 126,570,210. So if we take 2.5% of that, you have 28,164,255. So that is our levy ceiling. We're nowhere near that. That is a great thing, great position for us to be in. Moving down, so new growth revenue. What is new growth? New growth is any additional revenues that we can capture from new construction, additions, new lots, increased value in personal property. So that's personal property tax is any property owned by a business within the community. There's certain statutes that limit what we can tax on personal property, but what we can tax, we do. So we have $305,100 in new growth revenues. That's
Good.
pretty good. That's been about where we've been for the last few years. I was a little leery with the reduced work from COVID that we were going to hit the numbers we were looking for, but they pulled out the stops, I guess, a few contractors, so we did pretty good.
Mhm.
Levy limit, that's also referred to as a maximum allowable levy. That's calculated by adding 2.5% of the previous year's levy limit plus new growth. So that number is $22,421,921. If we could scroll down a little bit more, Jenny. So this is how we calculate levy limits in numbers here in a little thumbnail sketch. We always start with the prior fiscal year's levy, which you see on the top there. You add in Prop 2.5. So there's always confusion about what Prop 2.5 is. It does not relate to people's property tax bills. Those can go up more than 2.5%. Prop 2.5 is the amount a town can levy. We typically cannot, well, you cannot go over 2.5% with other caveats, which are adding in new growth. And also you'll see excluded debt. So when we add in from fiscal 20's levy, Prop 2.5, new growth and debt, we get up to our maximum levy of the 23,664,958. Then you see our levy ceiling again at the 28,164,255. So as I said up in the beginning, we're not actually levying the full amount that we could. So that is what you see there, the excess levy capacity of $164,703. Any questions this far? All right.
Nope.
So now we're going to get into the valuations in class before shift. This is really what we're here to talk about. So as you can see on the far right, where it says res versus CIP. CIP stands for commercial, industrial, personal property. So that's our values and how they break out as far as whether we would have a single or split tax rate. 93.5% of all revenues are sourced by the residential class. We only have just under 6.5% commercial, industrial, personal property. So to do a split tax rate with that little CIP, you would have to almost shift the full 150% to make any dent in reducing residential tax rates, which would do two things. Number one, it would scare away the last few businesses we do have because their taxes would be exponential. And number two, chapter land properties are taxed under the commercial guises as far as state legislature is concerned. And being a right to farm community with the number of chapter properties we do have, all those folks would be seeing that higher tax rate by doing a shift factor. If you could scroll down a little bit more, Jenny. So what the Board of Assessors recommends, as usual, is keeping a single tax rate. And as you can see in the middle of the page, tax rates, what we would be looking at and the difference from fiscal 20 to 21. So there is going to be a tax rate increase this year. We'd be looking for going from 2039 to 2086. We do have approvals already of our growth and values, so that piece is all approved by the state. So we don't have anything to worry about there. Why the tax rate's going up? Well, overall, our residential valuations have not increased that much this year. You can see down under tax impact section, we've only increased about 1.2% from last year. So pretty small increase on your average single family from 549 to 549.2. But because our budget has not gone up that much, the overall impact isn't that bad. It's $262 on
That's the same rate
full fiscal year.
that I think is a problem. Chasing people right out of town.
In past years, we've seen that be much, much worse. I know it's still hits the pocket, but you know, we do have senior exemptions for folks within the town. So if anybody's interested in that, I invite you to contact the office for that help. If we're able to provide it, we certainly will. And also any veterans with service-connected disabilities of 10% or greater, we also offer exemptions. If you could scroll down some more, Jen.
Yep.
So again, the Board of Assessors is recommending that we keep a single tax rate. The single tax rate would be $20.86. The levy would be the $23,500,254.58. And we would have excess levy capacity of $164,702.42.
Yep.
Also, I just want to point out, usually when we do this, there's a form that we have the Board of Selectmen sign that has been done away with by the Department of Revenue this year. So you don't have to look for me hounding you for signatures after this. What we're going to be looking for is the town clerk to do a certification of this meeting and how you voted, and that'll go to the Department of Revenue.
Well, I think all things considered, I mean, I think we're still doing pretty good. Obviously, a split tax rate. In the past, you had provided a spreadsheet and would have been for you know, the farms and everybody else in business would be like 31, 32%.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it still could obviously makes sense since we don't have much commercial business to keep it at a single tax rate. An increase of 262 is definitely not bad. So.
Right. I do remember years where we saw average tax rate increases of about $1,000. So
Yep.
the fact that we're under 300 is a good thing.
Yeah, it's a very good thing.
Any questions from anybody?
Well, I would note that looking at your estimated taxes for 21 versus 20, that although Proposition 2.5, you made a point before about Proposition 2.5 being overall taxes. the tax increase you're forecasting is less than 1.1%, and on an average single family home, which I think is a good accomplishment
Yep,
for the town, for the way the town is managed.
yep.
So, are there any other questions or comments?
Not from me.
I would like a motion that the Bolton Board of Selectmen vote in accordance with Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 40, Section 56 as amended, the percentage of local tax levy which will be borne by each class of real and personal property relative to setting the fiscal year 2021 tax rates, and set the residential factor at 1.00 with a corresponding CIP shift of 1.00, pending certification of the town's annual tax recap by the Massachusetts Department of Revenue.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Roll call. Wysocki,
Aye.
Keep,
Aye.
Sikansky.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, David. Thank you
You're
very
welcome.
much, assessors.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much.
All right, everybody have a good night and
You
stay
as
safe.
well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is Bolton Access Television. They visit us every 3 months to get their release of funds
They
from the
just come to get
Comcast
their money.
transfer.
Come
And
to get their
you
money.
know, we're just so happy to see you. Thank you very much for coming and tell
Thanks.
us what's going on.
Things are rolling along okay. So our Q3 is in corner. So that is really good news. We weren't sure how things were gonna go with the pandemic, but I guess everybody's kept their cable packages. So keep on keeping on for that.
All right. All right.
We had a really nice Veterans Day program. We couldn't do anything in person, so we put together a cool shout out thing. So Dawn and Jenny, you sent me some awesome stuff too. So that was really nice. We did a Halloween kind of slideshow of people's pictures. And so that's what we've been doing. Lots of government stuff and then lots of virtual things.
All right.
Right.
Very good. The amount of money that's come in from cable fees for the purpose of to the town is an access fee of just over $26.09, a franchise fee of about $23,529, for a total of $26,138.85. Do I have a motion to release that money to Bolton Access Television?
I'll make a motion that we release the sum of $26,138.85 for the Q3 operating expenses to Bolton Access Television.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Roll call. Wysocki,
Aye.
Keep,
Aye.
Sikansky.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Nikki.
Thanks, Nikki.
See you in
Night.
3 months. Now we have joining us tonight our representatives from the Shelburne Regional School District. That be Amy Cohen, Mike Haresh, and Mary McCarthy. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thanks for having us.
Welcome.
Why don't you bring us up to date on some of the things that are going on that maybe haven't made the headlines, but are still interesting to tell us about.
Well, I can start and mention a couple of things, and then maybe Amy and Mary, you can fill in some of those gaps. Is that okay?
Sure.
I guess one of the things again, you spoke about things that aren't making the headlines. We are making headway in establishing a sort of an alternative method of establishing a culture in the district of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And that is going to involve subcommittees, which will thereby kind of spread out and influence how the curriculum is established, how classes are taught, the interaction between teachers and teachers and parents, and on a community-wide basis. So that's exciting. I think on October 22nd, the school committee approved a motion that would request from the administration a pathway that would describe how and under what conditions we would pivot from one teaching model to another. In other words, for example, hybrid to remote, remote to hybrid typically. And so those details are pending. We have a meeting in early December. And we've also gotten, I would say, scant survey data, but survey data from the elementary schools and at the high schools that have probed parents about their experiences in both the hybrid and remote models and in the various buildings.
Okay. Okay. Mary or Amy?
Mary, would you like to go?
Okay, I'll go. In terms of budget at the school committee meeting last night, looking at where we are currently in the budget, you know, we are looking at the fact that that COVID monies, grant monies, COVID, all related to COVID, will be running out as of the end of December. So looking very carefully at the budget, because remote academy teachers had to be hired. And so salaries for those teachers, some of that coming from that COVID money, will mean, you know, an extra scrupulous look at what the budget will be as we go in after December 31st, also bandwidth. So it's a very different budget year from, obviously, it's a very different year for all of us living on this earth in regard to COVID. So we're looking at this very carefully and asking business manager Pat Maroney to really pull out some of the specific costs that have to do with COVID, so we can see that better. And even where we thought we might have some savings in terms of, you know, electricity, utilities, et cetera, at, for example, the high school, where we do have teachers there. And what Pat was explaining was that even in terms of heat, wanting to keep the windows slightly cracked to be able to get fresh air to come in, you know, that impacts cost too. So looking very carefully at this very, very different year with our eye on the budget. Amy?
Yeah, the only thing I was going to add is that the district has added a COVID dashboard to the website as an informational tool for residents and the community to be able to see cases that have been reported at the town level and at the district level among students and staff. And that's, I think, is going to be an excellent communication tool, and just, you know, reference point for people in the district. Also, district task forces have been reconvened, just to continue the discussion of what's working and what might need to be evaluated on an ongoing basis. That's something new that has happened.
Okay. How does the, there was some discussion about how emails get handled when they're sent to the representatives. Could somebody review that for me? Because I'm not sure it was clear at the meeting.
Sure.
I might
So-
defer to one of my other committee members who has more experience here.
Well, I can do my best to clarify the protocol, and if Mary or Amy want to buttress that with any more details, I'm happy to defer to them. But generally speaking, any emails that are addressed to the entire committee are responded to by the chair. And any emails that are addressed to individual committee members can be responded by those committee members. And we generally keep the chair abreast of those details so that if there are concerns floating around in the community, that as a committee, we all are privy to that. I'm not sure if that's what you meant, Bob.
Well, I got the impression from one of these meetings recently that basically, even if someone sends an email to a specific school committee member, it kind of goes into a central area, and that some administrator has to review the email and then put it in a box or something like that. Is that not the case? So if somebody sends an email to you, does somebody other than you see the email?
Not that I'm aware of.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Not that I'm aware of either. And I'll just say, as a new member of the school committee, there was some, getting to know the proper protocols is a learning process. So, I've been learning as I go as to what the proper routes of communication are. I don't know if that contributed to any confusion in this area, but there's definitely not a box that emails are going into, and they're definitely not being required to be reviewed by administration.
Yeah, they're
Okay.
not vetted. They're not vetted by anyone before we get a chance to look at them.
Okay, then
And
I
well,
did not
I'd
hear
like to,
correctly.
and I would just like to say to assure everyone that when any email comes in to the whole Neshoba Regional School Committee, we all receive it. And I just have complete confidence. I can speak for myself that I read every one, but I have confidence in my colleagues that they read every single email, even if it might seem that the email is more a template. We still take that as seriously as any email and realize that if it's signed by someone, a parent or someone who is very interested in this topic, it doesn't matter if it looks exactly like other emails, we will read every single one. And no one is telling us that you can't read it or that you can't respond. And we get a lot of emails. And so that's good because we need to hear from people.
Okay. Any other selectmen have any questions?
Well, I guess, Mr. Chairman, perhaps we might want to understand the manifestation of the boycott of, well, I'll call it a boycott, but the non-attendance of school committee members at the most recent tri-town meeting, and what was the genesis of that?
So I will speak for myself. I went to the Tri-Town meeting prior to the one, I think which was on Tuesday or Wednesday. I did not attend the current one because I am up to my eyeballs in responsibilities and meetings. This is literally my fourth extracurricular meeting today on Zoom or on a phone call. So I would be very hesitant to use the word boycott. It was simply a mechanism for self-preservation. I need to be able to spend time with my family, and it just landed on a night where it didn't work out. So I hope that it's not taken in the wrong way. Certainly not a boycott by any stretch of the imagination for my eyes.
Well, that's true, but we had no indication that you were not attending. So, if you're not able to attend, then perhaps you should let us know. The expectation is that we set these meetings in advance, and the expectation is people should be attending. And if you can't, just let us know.
So Stan, I'd like to respond to that too. What is really interesting is that there seemed to be a change in tenor and tone of that, not the recent meeting, but the meeting before that. The other meetings that I had intended as a school committee member, I never felt that I was specifically invited. It was the superintendent who would attend and any of us who wanted to. And I found them productive, a good chance to meet. I knew who we have, on the select board in Bolton, and obviously Dawn. But it gave me an opportunity to travel all the way to Lancaster and to meet select board members there and their town administrator. And although we didn't have as many in Stowe, it seemed to be mostly Bolton and Lancaster, but very, very productive meetings. And that's what we would like to get back to, so that the expectation would be clear. Certainly, if anyone has questions of us, information that we as school committee you'd like us to provide, if we know ahead of time, we will have that information for you. And it was just a very unfortunate meeting, the meeting, prior to the one that was this week. And it just was so different, Stan, and everybody on this. It was such a different type of meeting. When a lot of the information being asked for is available, or we could have, if had we known, provided that information. So what we want to get to is a way that the tri-town meetings can be productive for everyone and be collegial, productive, and that's what our letter was about. Certainly not a boycott, not in any way a boycott, but looking for norms. Because and the reason we're here tonight, invited for an appointment with the select board, is to demonstrate that going forward, there's nothing that any of us want more than to have good relationship with our board of selectmen in Bolton, and as well as the other boards. And so it's very important to us, and that's why we're here.
Well, thank you, Mary. But the Tri-Town meeting has been going on since 2003. This is not a new meeting, and the agendas are published prior to the meeting, so you know exactly what's going to be asked for at these meetings. So there's no surprises. And hopefully in the future you'll continue to participate, because the expectation is that this is an opportunity for the three towns to get together, because we are a regional school district. It's important that the management of the towns, which are the selectmen, the finance committees of the three towns, the school committee, which is represented by all three towns, and the district management participate in these meetings, because the crucial aspect right now is the education of our children, and we're in extraordinary times, and there are lots of concerns by lots of parents coming from many different directions and facets, and I think we owe it to the constituents in all three towns and the parents and the children to meet, whether you like it or not, or whether it's the best environment. And we're certainly going to try to make it the best environment we can, but it's very important that we all meet. And I think it's important, regardless of whether folks may not necessarily like the format is the format it is. And I think we owe it to the three towns to step up and be responsible for discussing these very important issues.
That's right. And Stan, I'd like to point out that school committee is responsible for the education of the children in our towns. That is the province of school committee. The Board of Selectmen has a different province. It is not ours specifically. And that's why we are elected. And that is our central focus, that the education, the best possible education for every single student in the Neshoba Regional School District, that is our charge. That is our mission. And we are dedicated to that. And I would like to point out that there were a number of questions, not necessarily from Bolton, but a number of questions. We had no idea of what those questions were ahead of time. So that was what I was referring to. When there are places to find out the information on websites we have a superintendent who is our chief executive officer, as Don Lowe is yours, and numerous other ways to find out some of the information that it should not have been. It was not run efficiently. It should not have been that way. And going forward, I'm sure it won't be again. So thank you for joining us in our charge to educate the students of Neshoba, but that is ours at school committee.
Well, I appreciate that, Mary, but you know, if there are questions that are being raised and people don't have the answers, then it's our responsibility to get those answers. And you do need to realize that it is the 3 towns that are paying the majority of the bill for the education of their children in schools. So in my mind, it's the parents and the taxpayers who are the customers. And they need to be satisfied with the service that they're getting for the money that they're spending. So I think we need to really look at this as a charge and a mission to make sure that we are dealing and servicing and making sure, to your very point, that the children are getting the best education possible. And I certainly want to work with you to move in that direction. I look forward to working with the school committee, and I hope the district continues. I'm a little disappointed that the district didn't participate in last week's meeting, but let's move forward. You may not necessarily anticipate all the questions that come up, but if they come up, we need to address them, and let's work forward. Hi, Don. How are you? I see you. Hi.
And if I may, I'd just like to add that I think the 3 town administrators can play a role in helping here. And I know that we're working on resuming the monthly meetings that we used to have with the superintendent. We're hoping to get one scheduled, I believe, in December, so we can start talking about the budget and whatever else needs to be discussed. So I think between Denise, Orlando, and I, we can help in this area as well. Also, I'd like to say that while I've gotten to know Mike over the past couple of years, and I've certainly spent some time with Mary over the last year, I haven't had the pleasure of ever even speaking with Amy. So I'd like to welcome Amy as a new school committee member.
Yes.
Amy, you wouldn't know this, Amy, but I'm a recovering school committee member myself. I spent 6 years on the Clinton School Committee, and I'd be delighted to schedule some time with you, either a call or in person, Zoom, whatever would work for you, just to start to get to know one another. And I'm always here as a resource for a sounding board for any of our 3 school committee members that would like to talk. I'm always happy to make time for that.
Thank you very much. I look forward to setting something up to get to know you as well. I am new to all of this. My own take is I've not participated in a tri-town meeting before last month's meeting. That was, from my view, also an unfortunate meeting because of the tenor of the meeting and the way it progressed between members that were speaking. And but I see a lot of value in a tri-town meeting. I think that getting the 3 towns together in a regional district is very important, and opening up communication channels should absolutely be happening. But in asking about the history of these meetings, what I was told is that there are existing channels of communication between town administrators and the superintendent, and these tri-town meetings serve as a way for the 3 town administrators to meet with the superintendent and exchange information. So I honestly didn't know that there was an expectation for individual school committee members to attend a tri-town meeting and represent their, their town for the school committee. So, Dan, I'd like to encourage, if you ever have any questions that you'd like to get answered, or any of the selectmen, please reach out to me as a school committee member, and I'd be more than willing to try to get answers for you. I make that pledge because in the end, it is all about providing the best education for our children. That's why I ran for a school committee seat. And, I think that's an important perspective to keep in all of this.
Exactly. It's all about the kids.
Yes.
That's paramount. It's all about.
I'd like to just get a couple of questions in before we go. The letter that Mary referenced, the February 12th letter. When I go back and look at school committee meetings, and I didn't watch the whole things, but I just sampled all the way through, I didn't see any place where that letter was discussed, and I didn't see it in any of the agendas.
Well,
So
what is
did
the
this,
February 12th letter? I'm sorry to interrupt.
the letter from the school committee chairman to the town administrators?
February 12th?
February 12th?
I'm sorry, November 12th. I'm sorry.
Oh,
I don't know why I got February in my mind.
okay.
No, November 12th. I'm sorry. Last Friday. Was last Friday yeah, it was the 12th.
13th.
Okay. So I've completely lost my credibility on discussing this letter. But was there a vote on that?
So I can take that one. I got a similar request from Stan, and I'll respond in the same way. Our charge as school committee members falls under the purview of three primary topics. The first is policy. The second is budget, accepting the budget or passing a budget, and third is evaluation and hiring and firing of the superintendent. So the letter that was drafted by the chair and then sent out to school committee members didn't fall under those categories. I'm not sure if the suggestion there is if there was deliberation, but this was not an agenda item. This was something that was drafted by the chair, sent out for revisions. Those revisions were made and then were sent out as a representation of the entire committee.
Right, because all of your names were on that letter.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, so it wasn't done in formal meeting.
It was not an agenda item for any previous meeting.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. That's the question. That's the totality of my question. So thank you very much for Jonathan.
Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit. I guess what I'm noticing about this issue of hybrid and remote learning, it reminds me of previous uproars, the one last year about the teacher, ones before that, is that the school committee has kind of works very hard to control the dialogue. So it seems as if the public has to get their questions in advance of meetings. They can't just bring them up on the floor. They're limited to a certain amount of time. And I think that contributes to the frustration that you're hearing from parents. So I'm just wondering, do I have that right about kind of how you structure hearings where you hear from the public? And can you do a better job at allowing parents to share their opinions with you in public?
So I'll take it and maybe, Amy, did you want to say something?
I can speak after you. I'm on the policy committee, and so I'd like to tell
Okay.
what we're working on, but go ahead.
So a difference between a hearing and like a public hearing and a school committee meeting. So it's a school committee meeting is a business meeting that's held in public. It's not a public hearing. Now, for us to have public hearings, and we have had that, and we want to do better in terms of communication with our public, with our families, with our parents, and that would be more of an exchange, a real listening on our part, to more than just what we get in terms of email, telephone calls, but really on a specific topic, being able to listen. And we have done that. And perhaps one of the lessons is that we need to do that more. School committee meetings are structured in a slightly different way. There is a specific section for community comments, and it needs to be, and this is protocol for all school committees, at least across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and I would believe school boards across the United States too, so that we can only have a certain amount of time, because there is so much business on our agenda that we need to be able to get to, and there's a lot of detail on that. So and in fact, I think Amy will probably talk about some of the ways that we could do this better. But most school committees have a certain amount of time, whether it's 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and people speaking would talk for 3 minutes. COVID turned everything around and put all of us into these spaces that we're in, these little boxes, and so that has made it more difficult. And we realize that parents and people who have written their comments have not found it satisfactory to have the chair read that. And that's something that we'll read their comments. And that might be something that Amy wants to talk about. Is that what you guys?
Yeah, that's a good segue, because I sit on the policy subcommittee. The policy subcommittee is charged with reviewing the policies that the district and the committee adhere to. We do have a policy on public comment that is has been the topic of the last 2 subcommittee meetings, and I believe at our meeting last night, we asked to review this policy at our next school committee meeting, specifically with regard to this issue of trying to do a better job of incorporating the public's comments. So just know that that is something that we've been discussing. We can't speak on behalf of the school committee, but I can let you know that that is something that the school committee plans to discuss at its next meeting. As far as I know a request was made to add that to the agenda for the next meeting. So I'm hopeful that we can make some changes in that area. The other thing I wanted to point out was that, as Mary said, that occasionally we hold listening sessions, and Mike and I held a listening session for Neshoba High School parents at the beginning of October, when we started to hear concerns expressed, among our constituents, and when there were letters to the editor published in the local papers. And so those things that has happened, and they will continue to be an option. So.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
in those listening sessions, did you feel that you were able, as individual representatives, able to answer questions and talk freely with the public, or were you kind of more guarded and careful in those dialogues?
I think we tried to share information that was publicly available, and help to clear up some misconceptions, but point people in the direction of where information may exist that they had questions about. But, you know, and the same thing went for those listening sessions. We could not, we couldn't speak on behalf of the committee. Our role was really just to listen to the concerns being expressed and bring them back to the committee and share publicly available information as much as we could. Mike, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, so as you said, we couldn't hold that listening session representing the entire committee. We really only did it because we had the sense that there was public sentiment and that there was a need for an outlet. And I feel like we gave that opportunity for an hour and a half, and people were very forthright about their concerns, and we shared all of those concerns and our conclusions with the school committee in a subsequent meeting. So if there was any reluctance to share out information, it was only because we were not able to disclose anything other than public information, and B, that we didn't represent the entire committee. We represented ourselves, and we really did try to do a good job of not sharing out our own opinions and deliberating on a particular issue, particularly contentious issues publicly. But there certainly was no external mechanism for throttling how we managed and interacted with the community. I mean, I think quite the opposite. I think that was a way in which both Amy and I, and unfortunately Dr. McCarthy couldn't make it, but that the Bolton representatives wanted to give an opportunity for the public to have their voice. And I would also add that a lot of the policies and protocols on the public comment session preceded my presence on the board. So this is not something that's anything new. Of course, we are revisiting it. I'm actually part of the communications subcommittee. So there are mechanisms that we're trying to enact that will allow for increased public participation. I 100% agree that there are flaws, but I would also ask you to trust that there are people that are on this committee, all three of which who are attending this meeting, that are working assiduously to try to open those channels of communication.
And I think that's
Thank you.
important because I'm hearing from a lot of folks that they're frustrated that they don't have a voice at school committee meetings. The
Yeah.
public comment section at the beginning is that someone may read a letter, but there's no discussion or action being taken. And we had a matter of fact, we're going to have a section right after this talking about a marijuana facility. We had 40 or 50 people on a meeting.
All right, Stan, you gotta make this quick, Stan.
Yeah, I understand. But we allow public comment, and I think it's important that folks have the ability to speak and have their voice heard. And I will bring up one other thing here, is that in yesterday's meeting, there was an agenda item about reminders for something on December 16th with the Murphy, Hess, Toomey, and Lehane legal training for school committee members. What is that? Because there are avenues through some other agencies to have this training. What is this training that is going to be going on in December?
All right, I'm going to
That
allow.
apparently is being paid for by.
I'm going to allow the school committee to respond, but I want them to have the last word at tonight's meeting.
That's fine.
Mary, do you want to take this, or would you like me to?
Okay, all right. Well, I'll start so that every year, especially when we have new members, so we have a legal briefing, and the fun part of this is this gets to be another hour preceding a school committee meeting, which we try not to let go more than 3 hours. In any event, this is not my first time on school committee, and I also have experience with a lot of other school committees, and this is common practice that especially the lawyers who are working with the district would come in and give an overview of the laws that school committee members should be aware of. And so that it's especially for our 3 new members. And again, we're very happy that we have another representative from Bolton and that it is Amy Cohen. But we do have two other new members, one from Stowe and one from Lancaster, because as we looked at the populations of the 3 towns, we found that we were entitled to that. And so it's important to bring those members up to speed. I've taken a lot of school law courses, and yet I still find that to have this kind of a review, even though I've been on school committee, I've been in education, if there are latest cases, that will come up too. So that is exactly what this is. This is a protocol, this is routine, and it goes on every year.
That's fine, Mary, but apparently there's already
Stan,
a school.
Stan,
No,
Stan.
Bob,
Yes, Stan.
no, Bob.
Yeah,
There's
Stan.
already a school
No,
committee association
Stan,
that provides this
we're
education.
gonna bring this. We said that they'd have the last word, Stan. Amy and Mike, would you like to add anything?
I would add that, as Mary said, there are lots of trainings that we are required to attend. We attended one yesterday on a review of Robert's Rules and parliamentary procedure. We have multiple meetings every year from the Massachusetts Association of School Committees. And the legal training, as Mary said, is one that we do every single year. It's pretty straightforward.
Okay, Amy, anything you'd like to add? No? Okay.
Only that I found the trainings to be very useful as a new committee member. And, I haven't gone through this legal training yet, but all of the other trainings that have been provided through the Massachusetts Association of School Committees or whoever's providing it has really benefited me and the committee as a whole. So.
Okay. Well, I'd like to thank you all very much for attending tonight. I hope we can do this again in another few weeks or a couple of months. Thank you very much for participating.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Have
for
a
the
good night.
opportunity to share information.
All right. Shifting gears here, we're going to have a presentation and discussion of a proposed 40B building project at 580 Main Street. I believe our guests tonight are Jim Lambert and Mark Seck and Jeff O'Neill.
Thank you. So I'm Jeff O'Neill, one of the principals of 580 Main Street, the office building that's there. We appreciate you folks allowing us to present a potential development opportunity on the excess land at the rear of the site. Our goal is really to preserve the front left office pod. We do have some great tenants there, but obviously we are facing financial pressures with office occupancy as you can well imagine all along 495, and as a result of COVID that we're trying to solve some issues at the building. So with that, I'd like to introduce on the Zoom call is Jim Lambert from Wood Partners. So Jim can kind of run through the presentation of what we think would be a potential opportunity to go on the rear of the site, as well as provide some benefits for the town as well.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. Good evening, everyone. I appreciate your time tonight. My name is Jim Lambert, as Jeff mentioned, Managing Director for Wood Partners here in Massachusetts. As I'll get into a minute, I want to talk a little bit about our organization, as well as go through quickly an initial preview of the development that we're proposing at 580 Main Street. Jenny, if possible, would you be able to shift the screen to me so I can run through the presentation, please?
All right, give that a try, Jim.
Is that working?
I don't see anything yet. Oh, there it is.
Great. Is that, and is it full screen?
It is full screen.
Okay, perfect. So again, we're presenting on 580 Main Street. The project we're referring to right now as Alta Neshoba Valley. Alta being Wood Partners brand name for our new construction Class A apartments across the country. Quick agenda that I'll run through, and I know we're on limited time tonight, so I'll work through this as quickly as possible to leave time for questions. I'm going to go through a quick overview of Wood Partners, who we are, what we do, walk through a couple of case studies of developments that we've built here recently in Massachusetts. Of course, go through the plan for everybody to review, talk a little bit about our typical development team, and then most importantly, go through the benefits and opportunity for the town of Bolton as we see it. Wood Partners. Wood Partners we're a fully integrated real estate development company. And what that means really is we're not only just a developer, but we're also a general contractor, and we're a property management firm as well, all under one umbrella. I think why that's important to note is that, when we come into a town and develop, we are responsible from soup to nuts, from the beginning to the end. We're a single point of contact. No pointing fingers at a contractor or a property management firm. We are all of the above. And I think that's certainly noteworthy. We're one of the larger apartment developers in the country. There's a publication called Multifamily Executive that ranks firms like ours, and annually we rank up in the top 5. This year in 2020, we happen to be number 3, and just that's basically on sort of number of units across the country started, and that's really a factor of how many offices we have, which is 18. We're based in Atlanta. We've been operating in Massachusetts for over 10 years now, 12 to be exact. We've been extremely active in the Massachusetts market in that time. As you can see on the screen, this is a list of the developments that we've built. I think what I would note is that all of these projects are outside of Boston proper, meaning we're primarily a suburban developer. So what we're presenting to you tonight is really our bread and butter. It's what we know best. It's what we live day in and day out. And certainly, as you can see in this list, which I won't go through each one of them, this is not our first rodeo on 495 either. We've developed in Andover, Hopkinton, and Franklin in the recent past. So we know this area quite well. This is just a map of the developments that we've completed or are working on here in Massachusetts. And just taking the list from before and showing it on a map view. And then some case studies. So I think sort of important to lay context on what kind of developments that we build. So we consider ourselves a Class A developer, which means we're building the highest end apartments that you'll see in the market, as well as some of our competitors. The example before you right now is called Alta Clara at the Fells, and this is in Stoneham, just north of Boston. This is a 261 unit development. It's a little bit taller than what we're proposing in Bolton. Certainly, it's a mix of 4 and 5 story, but it is all wood frame. It is all surface parked with some freestanding garages ringing the outside of the site. This was completed earlier this year. It is about 50% leased up, and it's been tremendously well received by the rental public, as there's certainly been a flight to more suburban living during COVID. This is some interior shots, as well as a shot of the courtyard of our Stoneham development. As you can see, very high-end Class A amenities with fire pits, pools, fitness center, work from home space, as well as club lounge, in this case with a billiards table, as you can see in the top right. And then the 2 pictures that you see on the bottom of the screen are the interiors of the units. Very high-end finishes, condo quality. So we have vinyl plank flooring throughout the units here, shaker style, in this case, very light gray cabinets, quartz countertops, stainless steel appliances, high-end slide-in ranges, backsplashes, and so on and so forth. These are really high-end units. This is one of our favorites. Moving on to another example, this is called Alta Easter, was called Alta Easterly. It's now, the name has now changed. This is a development in Walpole, 157 units that was completed in 2018. This is a 4-story wood frame product, also with surface parking and freestanding garages ringing the outside of the site. This was a very great success for us as well. Developed actually, interestingly, under the 40B comprehensive permit avenue, but location-wise, it's sandwiched in between 95 and Route 1 in a very single-family residential neighborhood. And we were actually able to really harmoniously, I think, blend that property in and get along and build this without a whole lot of heartburn for the community. This is some exterior courtyard shots as well as more interior shots. Again, similar theme with vinyl plank flooring, shaker style cabinets, glass backsplash in this case, high-end stainless steel appliances, pendant lighting, and so on and so forth. Again, you can see the amenities that we offer: fire pits, pools, grilling station, and outdoor seating as well. All of which we propose here as well in Bolton. And then finally, this is actually a development we're really excited to get started on soon. This is in Wayland. We're calling it Alta River's Edge. This is a forthcoming development of ours that we're hoping to break ground either next month or in January. This is a long-running development. The town of Wayland actually rezoned this site on their own accord, took it out for an RFP process, and we were the selected developer going back to 2016. And through some hard work on both sides, we're finally proud to be able to bring this to market in the coming weeks. And I think this is an important one because of the public-private relationship that we had with the town of Wayland. And I would certainly encourage you to seek some comments from the town of Wayland, town manager and board of selectmen if you were interested in hearing about how we operate as a development firm. This is going to be a 218 unit project. 3 and 4 stories with a very cool sort of farm stand like freestanding clubhouse, parking both at grade, but also this one has tuck under garages, which are effectively underground. And this one is basically just right off of Route 20, right before the Sudbury River. So we're really excited about this one. Okay, so getting into more specifically what we're here to talk about tonight, Alta Neshoba Valley. A quick overview, and then we'll show you a couple of images. As we've said a few times, the property is located at 580 Main Street in the rear of the existing office buildings. It's currently a surface parking lot and wooded area behind the office building, as well as where one of the office pods is will come down and become part of the project. We're proposing 276 rental apartment homes. Again, Class A, top quality construction and product level finish, as I just showed in some of the examples that we've built recently here in Massachusetts. As you'll see in the site plan in a few minutes, we're proposing 8 3-story buildings that are wood frame construction, and then 1 standalone amenity building, as well as some outbuildings that would house garages for people's vehicles. We have 421 surface parking spaces in the plan currently, with 16 private garages for a total of 437 parking spaces, which represents a 1.58 parking ratio, which is very healthy for us in our developments in suburban towns. Because it's under the 40B program, 25% of the units will be designated as affordable for those making no more than 80% of the area median income. And I think what's important to point out here, as I will in a couple of slides, while 25% of the units are designated affordable, the entire project can be counted against your SHI list, which is a very important point that we'll talk more about. We're proposing a mix of 1 bedroom plus den, 2 bedroom plus den, and 3 bedroom units. We always like to provide a great variety of unit types. The world of who's living in these buildings these days is ever expanding. It used to be rent by necessity, now it's rent by choice. And the demographics range everywhere from young folks all the way up to retirees. So we're seeing everybody, and everybody wants to live in different unit types depending on where they are in their life. The property will feature state-of-the-art fitness center, resident lounges, tech lounge, and landscape courtyard with pool games and grilling areas. I showed a couple of examples of those in our other properties. And then again, Wood Partners will be the developer, general contractor, and property manager of this development. Here is an aerial view of the existing site with an outline showing the parcel that we'll be acquiring and developing. As you can see, as we refer to these two pods of the office building, one will remain and one would be torn down to make room for this development. The existing entry drive, which is very nice and very mature, would remain. In the senior building, as well as the remaining office building, would be able to access, of course, their buildings coming off of the drive entry as well. So here's a very early concept plan, site plan layout of what we're proposing. You have to kind of adjust your view from the last visual. This is sort of looking from the back of the site forward instead of from the front of the site backward like we were in the aerial. As you come into the site, the existing entry drive is on the top of the page. You're going to come in past a brand new standalone amenity building, which is where the property management staff will work out of and greet visitors. And also, obviously, where we'll have fitness center and all the amenities that we've listed would be housed there, as well as a pool. And then when you proceed past the amenity building, you'll get into the heart of the development, which shows our 8 3-story buildings, which are a mix of 24 units and 36 units with surface parking, and then our 16 garages off to the left of the building. You know, we've tried to, as we always do, allow for as much circulation as we can on the site, as well as much green space as we can. And obviously this photo doesn't do it very good justice because there's green all around this development, which is something that we know is going to create a very welcoming community. Moving on, and I can go back to that certainly. Certainly something that's a challenge on the site, and I think probably most are aware, which is something that is, I think for better or worse, curtailed development at larger scales in the town of Bolton are the utilities. There is no availability of public water and sewer, as well as gas. So what we're proposing is on-site wastewater treatment facility that will serve the building as well as the office building. A well system. There's existing wells there today, but we'd be expanding that system to serve the residential development. And then I think what's a really interesting component of this development is we'd be using all electric HVAC, which is something that's relatively new to the market here in the Northeast. Very energy efficient, very green, and we're actually excited to be utilizing that technology, which would be a first for us here in Massachusetts. While these challenges are not insurmountable, they significantly increase the cost of development. The 276 units clearly would be very large for the town of Bolton, that we acknowledge that, but large scale density is certainly required to cover the cost of basically, self-producing our own utilities on the site, which is something that is pretty rare in Massachusetts for a multifamily development. So while I gave you a pretty raw and early conceptual plan of what we're doing, and I've also showed you some images of developments that Wood Partners has done, I thought it'd be important to show a couple of images of nearby developments in Berlin and Boxborough. One called the Rockwell, which is brand new this year in Berlin, as well as one in Boxborough called Paddock Estates on the other side of 495. This is a 204 unit and a 244 unit developments. They're both 3-story surface park. I think they're really good sort of images, although not exactly what we build because every company does their own thing. These are good examples of the type of products and the look and feel of what we'd be proposing here in Bolton, although we would take it up another level as well. Typical project team for us, as we consider ourselves best-in-class developers, we also use best-in-class consultants. In this case, we're looking at using Market Square architects who are out of Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Allen and Major Associates for civil and engineer, who's done almost all of our projects with us. On the zoning legal side, Nutter, McLennan, and Fish. And then for landscape design, renowned landscape architects out of Boston, Copley Wolf. And certainly that could change. And I think most importantly, I want to touch on what we believe are the benefits and the opportunity of the town of Bolton. So first and foremost, the town of Bolton is well below their 10% threshold on the SHI list. We're showing a 3.6% figure here. That is from the 2017 list, that was last published by the state. Unfortunately, it's 4 years old. So we'd have to check when that final number is, but I think it's safe to say that it's well below 10%. What we would be offering here is an opportunity in one shot, if you will, to get well over that 10% limit, which would both satisfy the current need for affordable housing in the town of Bolton, but also really allow you flexibility well into the future to choose your own destiny on any other development projects that were put forward. You wouldn't have to be subject to 40B. You'd have a choice whether or not you wanted that in the future. This site in particular, right off of 495, we believe is ideal for large scale housing. It's one of the least impactful, if not the least impactful locations. I know some will argue, but in the town as a transportation and getting on and off 495. We'd be providing affordable housing options for current Bolton residents, including seniors and young folks who grew up in Bolton or the surrounding area but cannot afford to find affordable housing to raise their families. I think we all know the housing market is through the roof. It's very difficult to buy a home these days in Massachusetts, and it's not going to get any easier anytime soon with the way interest rates are low and the way houses are selling at really high numbers, and it's difficult to get homes built in this state as well. Bolton lacks a real diversity of housing options, so what we're proposing would really be a pretty big departure, obviously, from single family homes, which historically dominated the Bolton market. And then again, we provide opportunity for seniors, downsizers to remain in their community, high quality maintenance free lifestyle, back to this idea of renting by choice versus renting by necessity. We're just seeing more and more every day in all of our developments, all walks of life, come and join us and live in our communities. It's because they want to, not because they have to. And then finally, certainly not last but not least, is tax revenue. We have a long way to go to figure out exactly sort of what the tax structure would look like, but safe to say that this project would produce well over $500,000 annually of tax revenue, if not more, for the town, which I think is something I'm sure every town is looking for. With that completes the presentation. Would love to answer questions and hear thoughts from the board and from the public, and I can go back to any slide that you want me to, and happy to talk through it further. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I could say one thing before you start, I'd like to clean up a mistake that I made last week or the last meeting. I said an error that one of the projects that Jim's group has done in the past is the one in Boxborough on 111. And while the projects that they do are similar, if not probably higher end than the one in Boxborough, they did not do that one. So to anyone that I said that to, I would like to apologize for my mistake.
Okay, thank you for clearing that up. Mr. Lambert, thank you for the presentation. Selectmen, any comments or questions?
Well, actually, I think this is an interesting proposal. I think it's a great proposal. We also had a committee sometime last year who actually recommended the same exact thing for Bolton to achieve exactly the same kind of results in terms of our affordable housing stock problem. So I think it's an interesting solution. I think it's it's a better way to deal with the property. I'm all for it. I'm very supportive of this.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Lambert, did any of your diagrams show where the water treatment was going to be on the site?
Yeah, let me flip back if I could. I'm not positive if this site plan shows it.
You have a leaching field at the top.
Yeah, that's an existing leaching field that's
okay.
there today, but we would be utilizing that leaching field. Yeah, I think we're showing the wastewater treatment plant in the what would be the left-hand side of this diagram, but it's not, unfortunately, it's not shown on this. I'd be happy to send that over offline if that would be helpful tomorrow.
Okay.
Well, actually, in terms of talking about the treatment plant, Don, I believe when there was a proposal years and years ago for an apartment complex where the development is across the street from the candy company on Sugar Road, that there was some potential discussion of doing some collaboration with the developer to expand that treatment plant, maybe for some residents along Main Street. Now, I don't know if that has ever been discussed with these folks here, and I don't know whether that's even an option on the table, but there is an issue, a potential issue, and I don't know if that's something we might want to at least have some initial discussion to see if we can take advantage of that.
Well, Jim and I have had several discussions. We haven't discussed that in particular. I'd have to get a little bit more background on that, since that previous project, if it's the one I think you're talking about, predated me. So I would have to get up to speed on that myself, but I'm more than happy to have any sort of discussions like that.
Yeah. Okay, great.
There are two things that are important. One is, in thinking about the project and making it connect via pedestrian paths to the rest of the town. So I guess what I'd like to see is how this community connects into the town of Bolton and also across the street to like Bolton Corners, where you have businesses and offices that might have services that people in this community could walk to. So that's one thing. And the second is going to be the architectural expression. So you showed a lot of projects with very like blocky, kind of like city apartment looks. You did show the nicer project in Wayland with, a pitched roof, which seems more in keeping with Bolton, since these are 3 to 4 stories. It would be nice if the architecture doesn't just stick out like big blocks in the landscape. It somehow fits in with the barn across the street, the big barn across the street, and other buildings like that.
Yeah, if I could, those are great comments, and we're very sensitive and actually looking forward to designing something that reflects the character of the town of Bolton. What we did show you in Wayland, I think for us is a great step in the direction of doing something different. You see a lot of the same out there. We're using board and batten. We have the single the freestanding sort of farm stand look amenity space there. We worked really closely with the design review board in the town of Wayland to get to that point, and we're very happy, and they were very happy with the end products. We don't have a one size fits all project that we pick up in one place and sit down and put down in another place. We design every project specifically for the market that it's in. We absolutely understand the comment, and we'll take that very seriously, and we're rowing in the same direction on that, because we want it to reflect the character of this town as well, and it's a beautiful town, so that makes perfect sense.
Great. So you'd be willing to work with our design review board on this project?
Of course, absolutely.
Great.
All right. Brian Boyle had a question.
Yeah, hi, thanks. Just a quick question. You identified a bunch of recent projects across Massachusetts, like Andover and Stoneham and Hopkinton. Are you able to provide any basic demographic information about the ages, family composition, number of kids, things like that for the people that end up renting the units? Because obviously one of the things we'll want to do is to be able to make some sort of informed projections about increase of school population. Thank
Yeah,
you.
Brian, thanks for the question. Certainly, I have no issue with that. I mean, again, we have a very wide variety of demographics living in our buildings. I would say the one thing that I have to just be careful of is fair housing. So we'll check with our our property management folks on what we can and can't put out there to the public for demographic information. We have no problem with it ourselves, but there is definitely some sensitivities on fair housing we just got to be cognizant of.
All right, thanks.
No problem.
Are there any other questions? Jenny, does anybody have a hand up?
There are no hands up.
Okay. All right. I don't have any questions. I think it looks very promising. Look forward to learning more. And I thank you very much for coming and demonstrating this. We did have at least one inquiry that asked that this was going to be recorded so they could follow up with it. So I think there'll be a lot of interest in this and people watching tonight's meeting because of that. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you all for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Next on our agenda is review and discuss a proposed host community agreement with Quickcraft Inc. This would include, I believe, Nick Katz with us tonight. To bring people up to date briefly, Don Lowe, Don, why don't you bring them up to date? Because you've been involved in this more detail than I have.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, as authorized by the Board of Selectmen, Council Brian Falk and I have had 3 negotiating sessions with Mr. Cat and his partners representing Lovecraft. And what we have provided, Brian and I have provided tonight to the Board of Selectmen, and I'd like to say right out of the gate, this draft host community agreement, as soon as this meeting is over, will be put up on the website, on the Selectmen's webpage, so anyone from the public may view it, download it, and study it. So what you have tonight is the work product of 3 meetings with Lovecraft. And what Brian and I did, and Council put together the draft HCA, and then he and I reviewed it and made some adjustments, but not a lot. We did the best we could to take in the input that we'd received from the residents, both at the Selectmen's meetings and from emails that we received, and tried to address the concerns that we heard. I think we did a pretty good job with that. We'll know better once everyone has had a chance to really study it. As I said, three negotiating sessions, and we got to the point where Mr. Cat, on behalf of Lovecraft, said that he was able to support and sign off on that when the appropriate time comes, what is contained within the host community agreement. So certainly Brian and I did not have the authority to sign off on it ourselves, nor was that the expectation. The expectation was to get a draft host community agreement to a state where it was ready for the Selectmen to review and comment on, determine if they were comfortable or not with it, whether they wanted to see changes with it, or if they were just not comfortable with it at all. So that brought us to tonight, where I believe the intention of the Selectmen tonight is to offer any initial comments they have, certainly appropriate for you to discuss it amongst yourselves. And then my advice to the board is, once you've done that, to take the time between now and the next meeting and for December 10th to really internalize the document. And then when we meet again on December 10th, then you have the opportunity to take, as I see, really three possible directions. One is to, once you've heard the input from the residents, and I know the chair has said he wants to have plenty of time for public comment at the meeting on December 10th, you may decide to sign off on the document as is. You may decide that you would like to see some additional things negotiated and send Brian and me back for further negotiations. Or it may be that you just don't get comfortable with it and you decide to cease negotiations without signing it. So those are really the three decision points for the 10th. But I think tonight the intent was to have an initial dialogue, have any initial comments or questions that you may have for me, and then you proceed from there. So with that, I'll toss it back to you.
Okay. I have reviewed the document. I think it covers all the points that have been raised that I can recall that have been raised and concerns for the area. I think it very well represents the interests of the entire town of Bolton, with a recognition that a large burden falls on the people of Bolton Woods Way as a result of this, and that the town as a whole and the Bolton Woods Way community are well served by this agreement. But I look forward to other people reviewing this. And as Don said, we will put it on the website, and we will invite community comment at the next selectmen's, not the next selectmen's meeting, but the December
10th, I believe.
10th selectmen's meeting. We will invite community comment. Anything else from the other selectmen?
Well, I do have a number of comments relative to the agreement, but I think based upon what has been said, I think we should probably just go and look at it and come up with our list of comments and bring them up on December 10th, or whatever meeting we decide to do that. I do also want to ask the applicant, one of the things that has been absolutely missing from all of this is when they initially presented to us, the initial focus and the only focus was having a retail establishment here in the town of Bolton. And if you look at page 1, the company, where it says, whereas the company wishes to locate a licensed marijuana establishment, specifically at a marijuana retailer, a marijuana product manufacturer, and a tier 4 marijuana cultivator. The latter two items were never really highlighted and discussed as to how they plan to do that. I think in conjunction with us reviewing this document, that the applicant or the applicants really need to come back to us and explain how they're going to do that within the time frame as listed in the document, which is a 3-year window. I think we need to have more detail on that as well, and I think in parallel to us reviewing this document. And I hope my colleagues would agree upon that.
Jonathan, any comments?
I guess I'd just like to nail down the language a little bit more on the curb cuts between Bolton Woods Way and the business. I think I'd like to see just a little bit more specificity about, I think there are 4 curb cuts now, and which ones are going to be gated and which ones are going to be removed permanently and kind of landscaped. I think it's very important, if we go ahead with this, that we separate the business function from the residential road completely. So that's just something I'd like to continue exploring.
So if I can help with that, Jonathan, the concept is that there would be one remaining access point to the property off of Bolton Woods Way solely for the purpose of emergency vehicles. Is we need to fight a fire or whatever, and that would be gated somehow. But I don't want to speak for Mr. Cat, but Mr. Cat has said publicly, I'm not talking about anything in negotiations, but he has said publicly that he is open to blocking, filling in, whatever you want to call it, the other entrances, whether it's some sort of an earth berm or however it's done. You know, we never got into the specificity of how it would be done. And that's certainly something that I'm sure you can think about between now and the next, the December 10th meeting, to offer, you know, a bit more detail. But the concept has been just that there would be one access point solely for emergency vehicles, and that any other access would come in off of Main Street.
Okay.
I'll take some questions from the community if there are any, but I want to say now they should be high level, maybe even process questions, because it's a 13-page document and I don't want to get bogged down in the weeds the first night that we're presenting this to the public. But if you have high level questions, I will try to address them. Are there any? No?
There are
Okay.
no hands.
All right. Mr. Cat, do you want to take this take a minute to say something?
Thank you. Apologize for coughing. I just want to thank Don Lowe and your counsel, Brian, for all the work that went into the 3 rounds of negotiation for the HCA. I think the document is a great starting point for the relationship between Lovecraft and the town. And based on the concerns about how we phase in the rest of the project, that is the details that happen between an HCA being given and the special permit being issued at the final time when that's actualized. So I just want to keep everyone with that in mind. That's why we are applying for these functions now, so that the application has been received, confirmed, and is able to be moved forward at a time and in a way that is designed accordingly if and when this happens. So I know initially we came to you guys saying that we thought that in the near term, we'd like to do the store and then phase into things based on how the market is going. I'm not sure if that will be longer or shorter than our initial phased approach, but we know we want to work towards that. Other than that, we look forward to the next few weeks of people getting to able to review the document that we've worked on, and I think that it's a great reflection of what's a great start with the town, given respectful consideration for the folks on Bolton Woods Way and all the concerns that other people had in town as well. So thank you for the time to present this evening.
All right, thank you very much. So we will move on from the agenda here. The next item up is the town administrator report.
Thank you much.
Thank you. Good night.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a few brief updates tonight. First of all, the COVID-19 update. As we all know, things continue to escalate within the state. The positivity test rate announced today was 2.8%, which is down from 3.2%, but still quite high and up from the low of 0.8%. I was informed just before the meeting that effective tomorrow, the state of New Hampshire is going to a mask mandate. So that's news that is out within the past couple of hours. As far as the town of Bolton goes, I informed the staff at my staff meeting on Tuesday, and we announced yesterday via news and announcements and this morning via Code Red that effective today, Bolton Town Hall is returned to being closed except for appointment only. So people can still get in here to do business that needs to be done, but by appointment. I'd like to reiterate, all the online services that we have that people took a great deal of advantage of when we were closed last time, even when we were not even open by appointment only. So I think we have a lot of offerings that people can avail themselves of. All of our contact information, all of our business contact information is posted on the door. It's posted on the website. And we want to be as accessible as possible during this time, but in an abundance of caution, based also for the sake of safety, both for the staff and for the public. I felt it was time that we get to this point. What we have also implemented, and I showed you in an email earlier today, is that we have a clipboard with forms for anyone who does come in by appointment. They fill out, it's similar to what you would see at a doctor's office or some other places. We're basically asking people questions about whether or not they've been out of state, the past 14 days, certain basic questions like that. We're getting their contact information in case, God forbid, we have to do contact tracing. So we know who has been in and out of the building. And we, I think starting Monday, we will have a thermometer, one of those handgun thermometers available so that when someone does come in, we're able to take their temperature. And so that we are not expecting anything of anyone that we don't expect of ourselves. Once we have that thermometer, every employee, every morning, will be taking their temperature when they come to work. And if anyone has an elevated temperature, they will go home. Everyone can work from home. I'm getting guidance from our health professionals as to what is an acceptable temperature range and what is not. I don't imagine if you have a temperature of 98.9 that you need to go home. So I need to know what that threshold is. So we're doing everything we can to try to keep the public and the employees safe while keeping the town running. And I think what we've seen from what we went through in the spring, we did keep the town running. We were able to conduct quite a bit of business. And we hope this doesn't run very long. I will be monitoring the statistics on a weekly basis. And as soon as things start, heading back to where we would like to see them, I will be delighted to reopen the building. It's certainly more fun when we have the residents coming in. We want to be around the residents, but we need to keep everyone safe while conducting business. I also would like to say that the timing works. We've already done tax collections, and we obviously are beyond the election, so early voting is done. Tax collections, the taxes are due again in February. I certainly am hoping that once we get past New Year's, we're back open. I think the experts are saying they expect a spike between Thanksgiving, a spike to continue between Thanksgiving and Christmas, with people back for the holidays and so forth. So again, trying to stay focused on keeping things moving, but doing the right thing for everyone. So I'm hoping that that things work the way I believe they will. And the second the data tells me that I think we're safe to reopen, I will certainly want to do it. As I think I've mentioned before, we reopened to the public on July 6th. We opened by appointment only in June. We opened to the public on July 6th, and we were one of the very first town halls in the area to do that. And we remained one of the few town halls who had stayed open to the public once they did open. Some never did reopen, some opened and then closed again. So we've been as progressive, I think, as we can be while maintaining safety. And I think the only update I have on the MassWorks FY20 grant is that the final work has been done on the project, and with the exception of keeping, I believe, 1% retainage for the spring to make sure that there is anything that needs to be redone in the spring. The project, for all intents and purposes, is completed. We're just waiting to hear in our next MassWorks application for FY21. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions or comments that anyone has.
Any changes at DPW?
You always make a good straight man, Mr. Chairman. Yes, there is a one change at DPW that I meant to mention. Monday marked the first day of our new DPW director's employment, Randy Heglin. He has definitely hit the ground running, covering a lot of ground already. We spent 2 hours today talking about his budget and capital planning and all sorts of other fun things, the goals that I've got for him for the first year. I hope he comes back tomorrow after I told him about those goals. Pretty confident that he will. So very excited. I think he's off to a very good start.
Okay, thank you very much.
I just had a question. Don, what are the infection numbers in Bolton?
Over the past 14 days, we have, one second, Jonathan, good question. We are, over the past 14 days, we picked up 5 new cases. And we are now in the green zone. We've gone from gray to green. I'm glad you asked, because I meant to say that. We've gone from gray to green, which is one color above gray. Then it becomes yellow and then red. Clinton is still red. They went up 34 cases, and Lancaster is now also red, and Stowe is yellow.
Thank you.
If there's nothing else, we'll move on to Board of Selectmen business. Are there any public service announcements?
Well, I guess based upon what Don just said, I think folks need to continue to wear their masks, and apply social distancing. So please do that. And to follow on to Jonathan's public service announcement last week, bottles and cans, please, at the Boy Scout barn. It's very important. I see tremendous numbers of bottles and cans that are being dumped into the recycling bin at the transfer station. You're obviously, folks, you're separating it out, but please separate it out and put it in the red barn. That's their main source of revenue. So hopefully we can get that moving a bit forward.
All right. Next up, approve bills and payroll warrants, W21-11 and W21-11A. Do I have a motion to approve those warrants?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Roll call, Wysocki,
Aye.
Keep,
Aye.
Sikansky.
Aye.
Thank you. Oh, I think I muted you, Bob, instead of muting myself. I'm sorry about that. We're right next to each other on my screen.
It's just like being at home, you know.
I wasn't avoiding minutes or anything, I promise.
I know the feeling, Bob. I know the feeling, Bob.
I lost my train of thought. Oh, yes, a prospective agenda discussion. There we go.
Hey.
There were a couple of things that came out of the Tri-Town meeting and the school committee. Too late for us to include in the agenda for tonight. And those two things are the letter from the school committee chairman to the town administrators about what they expect, their perspective on the Tri-Town meeting. And the second thing is some discussion on what's, I think, called a mutual agreement.
Memorandum of agreement.
Memorandum of agreement between the school district and the teachers, which affects the ability of the school to respond to in-school, as we understand it, in-school teaching at the high school. And in my opinion, we should be drafting a letter in response to the letter sent by the chairman of the school committee, which I would propose to do at a meeting. And I would just like to have a discussion about the MOA. I don't know that we need to make any decisions about that, but I'd like to have a discussion about that and learn more about what it says and doesn't say. I think Don would have some interesting perspectives on that. So I'm asking if the selectmen will agree to have a meeting next week, early next week, with these two items being the only two on the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, did you reference the letter from the 67 school teachers?
No, but I'm willing to put that on the agenda
Yes,
also if
yes,
you think it's appropriate.
because we at the previous selectmen's meeting discussed that we would be discussing at a future meeting. So I think that should be added as well.
Yeah, that was supposed to be on tonight's agenda, but we
Yes.
couldn't discuss it. I apologize for that oversight.
Yep.
That's on me.
Thank you.
But we could certainly add it to a meeting next week.
Yep, that's fine with me. And
Jonathan?
I'm available at any point in time next week, so whatever works for everybody else.
Okay.
Hopefully not Thanksgiving.
No.
What Thanksgiving?
Yeah.
True.
So
Tuesday evening was looking good for me. I can't meet Monday.
Tuesday is fine with me. Is 7 o'clock okay?
7 o'clock is fine. I'm actually taking that entire week off, so we could even do it earlier in the day if you wish, if that works for you, but 7 o'clock is fine.
7 o'clock it'll be. And Don and Jenny, will you post a notice with those three items on the agenda?
Yes, I
We
can get
will.
that done tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there minutes for us to approve tonight?
There are. Oops. Let me make that bigger. Actually, I don't even need to show it because I received no changes from the minutes of, let me get all of our faces off it so I can see, November 5th.
Okay, I'm fine with that.
Good.
That was always that one agenda item? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes for November 5th?
So moved.
Second.
Oh, there is the rest of it. Okay. All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Roll call. I think you're muted.
It wouldn't be a meeting if I didn't do that once. Roll call, Wysocki,
Aye.
Keep,
Aye.
Sikansky.
Aye.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Roll call, Wysocki,
Aye.
Keep,
Aye.
Sikansky.
Aye.
And I'm surprised nobody pointed out that there was a mass exodus right before the town administrator's report, but I'm sure it had nothing to do with you, Don.
That's it. Every once in a while, coincidences do happen. All right, have a nice
They
Thanksgiving.
figured your report, Don, was golden, so no one needed to question it.
Yes. And so Jenny, what was the number tonight?
Well, I don't know the total number since we decided to do total number, but the highest I saw it at was 46 at any one
Ooh,
time.
okay.
So that,
Yeah. And some people came and went, so you know it was higher than that.
yes.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, thank you. Have a good night.
Have a great
Good
night,
night,
everybody.
Thank you.
All right.
Jenny, can you see me?
Yep.
Can you read that?
Is that 48?
That's a 48.
That is pretty close, sir. You beat me. Mine was much lower. I think you talked me into dropping my number because originally I was thinking 34, but then I didn't want to go too high, so I went down to 23.
Psychology is allowed.
So I'm glad I
right.
didn't get any pastries on it.
Yeah. All right. We'll talk in the morning.
All right. Have a good one.
You too.